Hi, friends. Welcome to False Advertising, the show where we talk about your misconceptions about the world and we all try to be a little bit clear. Joining me is my co host, Donovan.
That's me.
Today, we're going to
How's it
go
going?
over COVID resolutions, or more accurately, this might be your COVID resolution take two. So, I recently went on Instagram and I asked just everyone, what their COVID resolutions are, and they ranged quite a bit. Some people are working on fitness, like some specific things like pistol squats. Some focus on health, like trying to quit drinking and live a better sober life. And then some people are worried about like the social elements, about like talking less, listening more. But a lot of people seem to kind of have similar goals to what people have in like New Year's resolutions, and I thought that was interesting. So I was wondering, Donovan, like, what kind of things have you done over the whole quarantine pandemic? What are the goals or things that you've started and kind of run with?
Yeah. The first one I started with was don't die. Not gonna lie to you. First, like 4 months of quarantine. I don't know. Like quarantine started, I was like, yeah, it'll be over soon. I just like vegetabled out. I just like shut myself in, shut the door. I was like, hell yeah, I'm gonna play Soul Worker. It's this Korean MMO. Grinded the shit out of that. Hit level cap. Was doing raids and stuff. Just watched Twitch streams. And like 2 months in, I was like, fuck, this isn't going away anytime soon. So then I had to like reevaluate then, and I was like, all right, maybe this is not a healthy way to
Yeah,
deal with COVID resolution.
fair enough.
So then I was kind of like where my starting point was, and then the first big one for me was kind of just like learning to like get a schedule. I
Mm-hmm.
realized like setting a schedule for myself is the hardest part, or like really difficult for me. I usually relied a lot on putting myself into like mandatory obligations, or I guess things with consequences.
Right.
It's like what's the it's like I can't bargain with myself because I know the dude who made the deal and he's full of shit. Like like that saying.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I get
So
that.
basically, like setting deadlines for yourself is like the most like it's like a pretty big meme. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like I would work. I got a job. I had a job coaching
Mm-hmm.
where that was kind of like I now have to like I'm gonna exercise because I'm working. This is like my job.
Right.
So that's kind of like how I got my work. School is kind of how like I motivate myself to get into stuff. Whenever I get freelance work, that's kind of how I grow.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would like sign up for clubs. I would do things like that. Basically, just invest in things. I would agree to plans, so I force myself to get out of my comfort zone,
Okay.
and like, and so following that, I was now in this place where I'm like, well, shit, it's just me,
Right.
and kind of just setting small goals
Okay.
was basically my resolution, and I think it's like gone a lot better now.
Mm-hmm.
I've kind of done the thing of like, um, exercise was a big one for me, where I was like, I literally sit in my chair like 18 hours a day sometimes, and so it was
Right.
like actually forcing myself on a cadence of like, all right, I'm gonna do stretching, I'm gonna do like whatever every single day, like light cardio, nothing crazy, but it's just like if I can do this same thing for like 15 minutes every day at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Like for me, that was like a really big step in terms of just like actually having a schedule I adhere to
Right.
myself.
So you hit the first goal of surviving. And you're like, okay, maybe I need something more.
Yeah.
By the
How
way,
about you?
for everyone
Oh,
else
sorry,
there,
sorry.
yeah, on a scale of to the end of this podcast to the end of 2021, how long do you think you're going to survive the pandemic? But yeah, no, totally. I did a lot of things as well. I think the biggest thing for me was as soon as everything shut down, it was like, okay, what am I gonna do? Like the first goal was like, can I keep a schedule going? So I just kind of pretended I was still working even though I wasn't, and just I started streaming online with the music, and then I was like, okay, well, this is my chance to learn all of the things. So I guess like a quick list of things that I wanted to do over COVID involved still being able to do a backflip. I wanted to be able to learn and make music. I wanted to get into streaming, and I wanted to get into YouTube. And so I think I hit most of those goals pretty fair. Like I signed up for a couple online classes, and I definitely learned how to make music. I don't think I got my money's worth because I've only watched about half the classes, and I've been procrastinating. But I definitely learned how to do that. Streaming, clearly it's happening. And then I put off the YouTube for a bit, and then we started that just like a couple months ago. But I think all things considered, I really took the whole, we're gonna run with this pandemic, and I see a lot of friends of mine that have kind of like went both routes where they're like, hey, I'm going to enjoy my life. And then some that were like, oh, I'm going to really work hard. And it's weird because I've seen both sides of people just kind of look at the other road saying, oh, maybe I should have relaxed more, or like, oh, maybe I should have been more productive. But at the end of the day, it was just, it was like, what did you want to do with your opportunity here? Right. And there's no right answers. It's whatever you want it to do. Right.
Mm.
But
Yeah, it's basically, basically.
Mhm.
No right answers is a pretty good way to play it.
Yeah. Just curious about those of you in the audience. What are your COVID goals now that a lot of the world is kind of going into like a phase 2 close down? Yeah, feel free to let us know. I do have a couple statistics about like New Year's resolutions because I think that's the only thing that we really have data on, and it's really comparable to this. So I'm just gonna go over a couple of them. So I think that the funniest thing is probably about half the people that think about going into a new year. For example, going into 2020, a lot of people said they would plan to exercise more, right? Health and wellness is like a big thing. The study that I'm reading, 50% said they were going to exercise more, 43% said they were going to eat more healthy, and 30% said they planned on sleeping a little bit better, which is entirely fair, right? But then, like, there were other things like sticking to a budget, focusing on spiritual growth, traveling more, which clearly didn't happen, and then learning, a new skill, or just better wellness with reduced stress. But I think it's funny is because people always plan these things and their intentions don't necessarily carry over. So, for example, about 25% of people who set a New Year's resolution are likely to still be doing it after 30 days, or at least trying. And only about 8% of people hit their goals. And this isn't just some like crackpot study. I found this on Forbes, and if their information's wrong, well, that's on them. Yeah, exactly. And the biggest takeaway that I saw was that putting something off never really helps, because like with a lot of like arbitrary resolutions, people say I'm going to do this at a later date. So when that later date comes, it was always tomorrow's problem, and they didn't actually get going with it.
Yeah, it's actually a really, really interesting topic, looking at like resolution and stuff like that. I'm curious to see how stuff changes as a result of COVID compared to New Year's stuff. Because the most common excuse that everyone uses usually is like, oh, I don't have time, or like I didn't have like life got in the way.
Mm-hmm. That's a big one.
But it roots in excuses, and most of the time that's usually just like the easiest one that we all kind of have.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if anything will change as a result of like, will it get higher or will it stay the same? Will it even get lower? I don't know. Is COVID is a scenario like, what kind of impact is COVID specifically, where a lot of people are basically like kind of stuck without anything?
Yeah, for
like,
sure.
because life is kind of on pause, basically. Like a lot of like the givens are on pause for a lot of people right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of this like, do we take an extent? Like you said before, everybody kind of has a different approach to it. Like, is it a different extended vacation? This environment does not like condone me wanting to put effort into it. Like it's a very like shit place. You put a lot in and don't get a lot back.
That's
unless
true.
You're able to kind of find that resolve and kind of self-satisfaction in what
Mm-hmm.
you're doing. And yeah, I'm curious about that, and kind of also in that vein, what do you think actually stops people from reaching their New Year's resolutions? Like, kind of go, or like, I guess not even just resolutions in general. What kind of like are those things that kind of keep us from hitting goals? I think would be like an interesting thing to explore.
Right. I think it's interesting because us personally, we look at this from like a very young person perspective, where our schedule is usually pretty malleable, right? Like you could tell work that you want to shift things around, and we don't have to be at the beck and call of our parents or our dependents, like if we have children or anything. But I think a lot of people do have those issues because they take up like much larger amount of the population than we do, which is like a big deal. But also on top of that, I think a lot of people don't really stick to a schedule or find a way that'll keep them committed. And that's probably a big thing, is just finding like ways to make it an environment. And we talked about this a little bit last week without you, was like starting a new personal journey is hard because not only do you need to like make time for it, but you have to have that marathon, that consistent effort. And I do think that really transfers over to people's resolutions because those are the goals that they have in their mind. But I want to ask you, why do you think people wait? Why do you think they put off a resolution to be like some arbitrary date? So like some people have the COVID resolution to be more social or reach out to people and see them in person once this is over. But like when that comes to be like a New Year's case, or maybe it's like a fitness thing for getting back in the gyms, why do you think that they put that off till the end when they could reach out on social media or they could start doing home workouts?
Probably just rooted in the same thing like procrastination is. Like
That's
on
fair.
instinct and kind of on guess. I think it's just our kind of innate avoidance of like, I don't know. I guess just like innately you just kind of, you want results and you don't want like we want results and you don't want that time in between where you have to do things that suck to get those results.
Yeah.
Um that's an interesting one for like the social one though.
Mm-hmm.
Cuz like that one is a very very like one-to-one like you have that conversation and you've completed it. Like it's just kind of you just do it and it's over.
Yeah,
I'm trying
that's
to
true.
say, like you know, so like that's an interesting. Like I think about that one for like gym. That's usually what I think for gym. It's like everybody wants the results of that. And they don't really want to go through the like sucking ass and pain of everything that it's like to get to that point.
Mm-hmm. And even sometimes when they do it, it doesn't work out, right? Like this is probably the reason why like
Yeah.
diet plans don't work long term is because a lot of people hold to it for their 90-day goal or till they reach their weight limit and they're like, perfect, we hit it, and then they go back.
Yeah, for sure. That's a big thing about fitness. Fitness is a lifestyle, not like a passion project, which kind of sucks ass, but it makes it really difficult as like I think like probably one of the most difficult goals overall for people to really realize
Mm-hmm.
because it requires such a change. If you're not there already and it's not something that's already, I don't know, either like something that you're motivated for, something you're not motivated, if the process doesn't motivate you. I find that's the biggest thing for me
Mm-hmm.
is finding motivation in the process. And what I mean by that is in whatever goal you're working towards, if you can find some level of enjoyment or find something that you like about getting to that goal, is so much easier to achieve those goals. That is why I feel like that's kind of the closest thing to like finding your passion in work.
Mm-hmm.
Like the closest definition to that kind of thing that I can give
Right.
is like you find something where it's like working towards this goal or working towards this resolution. There's something that interests me along the way. Like for me, like doing like gymnastics and parkour along the way, like the conditioning and like the stuff you get along the way for me, like
Yeah.
even the basics and fundamentals feel like really, those movements feel fun to go through.
Yeah, that's fair.
And those are rewarding. Like my end goal is like, I want to be able to do a backflip,
Mm-hmm.
but my training for that is like, I'm doing jump training and I'm doing core workouts and I'm doing like whatever kicks and things like that, these basics. I find enjoyment in those and I can see myself, like there are many goals, I guess, that I'm interested in achieving along the way. Compared for a lot of people where when their goal is like, I want to look good as fuck, that has nothing to do with being in the gym.
Right. Not at
Like
all.
curling those dumbbells, nobody gives a shit. Like
You
I
just wanna
fuck
reap
these
the
dumbbells. I don't
benefits
care
there,
about the
yeah.
dumbbell. I want to have this body, or like I want to go be able to like run.
Mhm.
And so for like in terms of like that kind of stuff, I feel like finding those pathways where you are interested on the journey really really helps like the goal be that much.
Right. So
And I've
maybe-
met people that are like crazy goal oriented
Mhm.
and they don't give a shit. They will literally trudge through literal shit if they have something that they want. And those people are like, I mad respect to them. But
Mhm.
like, yeah, I learned that about myself pretty quickly that like if I'm not having fun along the way, my willpower is so ass.
No, that's fair, right? If you are like resolute towards the process instead of this arbitrary goal that you set for yourself, you're more likely to continue through, right? I think that's definitely why a lot of people drop off after that month mark, where it's like, okay, this was kind of hard, and I'm not seeing the benefits, so I don't care. Where maybe, if your goal is to look better, you should say, okay, what's something I enjoy that'll help me get there? Maybe it's your favorite sport or something, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Hacking through your laziness is, I guess, pretty important.
Yeah, that could be a topic all on its own, to be honest. That's a good title for a future one.
Yeah, for sure.
Hacking laziness.
Right? Like, it's true. Like the people.
I kind of want to circle back a little
Yeah,
bit. Sorry,
go ahead.
give your point.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say that the people that like are very lazy but still find ways to work end up doing things really well because they just
Mm.
find the things that they're okay with and they just keep going, right? Channel your
Yeah.
laziness.
Honestly. Sorry, I wanted to circle back because I think
Yep.
it's really interesting to talk about like why goals are always like why do we set goals for the future, or like
Right.
why do we like it's less of a like goals are very often framed in this like I want to do something later, like
Right.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
look good in a year. It's
Future me
never
is gonna
goals are
have
never
this.
yeah, goals are never like right now I'm gonna do this to get this, like
Hmm.
almost always like it's like a very subtle difference, but you very often will see like my goal for the new year is to look good, or like my goal for it's very rarely like actionable. They're very
Yeah.
like future sighted. And to your point, right, like after COVID ends I want to connect with people,
Hmm.
and I wonder like yeah, I don't know if I have a good idea, but I did want to like also pick your brain on that. Like what makes us want to put things off? For things even let's stick on that example of like social interactions. Why do we say like we want to put them off?
Yeah, so this might be, tied into the fact that, like people want to reap the benefits, right? Like if I put off socializing till COVID's over, I can enjoy going to parties again. I can enjoy stuff like that. And then I don't necessarily care about like creating that deep intimacy. And then also at the same time, just having the fact that maybe I want to, push this off and slowly build up like the mental like capacity to take on something if you're an introvert, like that could be part of it. But as you continue to set the pattern of this is something for tomorrow, I think you're also more likely to just kind of not get into it because you're like consistently procrastinating it.
Hmm. Procrastination is definitely a habit and a fucking hard one to break. Holy shit.
Yeah,
There are yeah, like yeah, I'm trying I like the way that you phrase it. Like is it habitual? Is it kind of rooted in the That's actually not a bad way to put it.
hmm,
Maybe part of our kind of like putting off of goals is kind of maybe it's hoping that if we don't if we put them off till later,
right.
we can kind of like trip and stumble and fall into achieving them.
Hmm.
Like these are things that like if you think about doing it in the future, like you said, like after COVID's over, whatever, I'll get to be able to go parties again. I'm gonna leech off my friends. I'm like super, super guilty of this shit. I will leech off of all my extrovert and more like socially adept friends,
Hmm.
like all the time. Like I know people that are like super in and like know like where parties are. They know who, like they have all the contacts. I'll be like, hell yeah, I'm gonna hit them up. I'm gonna tag along with them. That's how I get my social interactions. Like I'm not setting shit up. I'm gonna follow this person because I know that they're
I filled
and
my
like
quota.
yeah, exactly right. Like
Yeah, so
um
maybe it should be habit setting. It should be the focus, or the process setting, because that's where you find the real resounding change in like the person you want to be, right? Like they say it takes something like 3 consistent weeks or 21 days to build a habit. But I don't
mm,
think that that's necessarily true because people say after 3 weeks of whatever. I think it's actually like 21 days of doing this thing. So that could be 21 weeks if it's like once a week type of deal. I think you
mm,
really need to ingrain that process for you to want to continue it, because if it's a one off, like you don't actually see the results. You just kind of play with the idea, and it is
that's
really
a
hard.
really that's something that I want to try too that I never did, but I really really want to like I don't know, go a little bit into like behavior and like behavior theory and stuff with this too, like that like reinforcement thing.
Hmm.
Like make a like I want to make like a 21 day like checklist. I want to make a calendar. I want to like physically go and like check mark every day that you do that and like watch those days get closer to that 21 day mark.
Right.
Like
See what
I want
happens.
to really yeah, just like curiously, I really want to try and tie physical tie something, right? For especially for things that I'm not as motivated to do. Like things
Hmm.
that are kind of um garbage. Like one of them that I'm still really like for like learning things related to work is one that
Right.
I kind of want to do, where it's like I learn on the job. That's
Hmm.
kind of always been the way that I do.
I feel
And I feel
that.
like I'm limiting myself because if I just like put in not even that much time, like 15 to 30 minutes, if I just try to like solve a problem, like I do software development. So if I just like did myself dedicated to a coding challenge,
Right.
literally 30 minutes of my day. If I did that for like 21 days, like what would I see in terms of would I enjoy it? Would I want to keep doing it? Things like that. Something that I'm like kind of reluctant to start. and just tie a physical action to it.
Yeah, and maybe that's why people kind of try to schedule the resolve and fit it into like something consistent, because that way it's easier to get into the small gains that you're talking about, and you really do see the difference. Like, I guess we can push on to, when's the last time that you took a resolution and you really changed your life for the long term? When's the last time you took something on and was like, this is the thing I want, and what did that look like?
Ooh.
Right, because that is a big thing. I think when people say, oh, I'm going to have this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to change this, you don't always consider what actually changed in your life that you wanted and you went out and got, and like what kind of effort did that take, what did it look like, and what does it look like now being in the future, because that's kind of the process of what you're trying to undertake again, right?
Yeah.
So like, what's the last thing you did?
I think the biggest one for me was probably just like this was a very abstract goal, I think, but it was basically just challenge myself to like, how do I phrase it? This is weird. This was a weird goal for me because it was kind of just like, it was very internalized. It was just a very like internal thing. Like I'm missing something, and I'm living life very passively. Like was kind of like I'm going through the motions and kind of just like as things happen, I'm kind of jumping on the trains like that pass me. Like I'm just kind of grabbing on and getting pulled.
So
along.
you're just kind of going through the opportunities that present themselves instead of seeking them out.
Yeah. So I guess the goal is like take more active control, basically.
Okay.
Like I want to take more agency over my own life. Jesus, I sound like a fucking inspirational speaker. But like basically, for lack of a better word, I wanted to like just take more active control. Play more of a role in the opportunities that I was getting presented, and feel like I didn't just like luck my way through this. I want to take that on. And so for me, that kind of looked like this was like around the time that I started getting into new things. Like basically any time there was something like I'm interested in this, rather than it being like an internal debate, I just forced myself to just like fuck it, start. Like anything, if I was like this seems cool, I want to try it, just go deep into it, like just full dive.
That's fair.
I did that with a bunch of things. And that was basically that's kind of where it ended. And that was kind of the resolution, was just to, at any time I want to do something, just seek, just just drill a path and find a way to do that. So like I got interested in dance. I was like, man, I've always wanted to learn how to dance. And then I went and found like the breakdancing club at my university, joined that. That was literally like, that was a result of that. Similar for like social stuff like that. That's when we started hanging out a lot more, and I started asking like, oh, hey, when are you going out? When are you doing these things? Still kind of leeching off of my friends that already had those connections, but I started like asking to get invited to a lot more things. I started trying to like go to more parties and put myself into more uncomfortable situations for myself. And just kind of like, if I saw somebody and I was like if I saw a girl, I was like, oh, that girl's kind of cute. This one was the most difficult, and to be honest, I didn't really follow through on it. But like if I met somebody and I thought they were cute, or if I just saw something that looked interesting, I would try to strike conversation. Okay. Just try to meet people.
I love that.
And that was a big one for me, is just like anytime there was like, I want something, like try to justify to myself, is there actually a reason why you can't have it?
Mm-hmm. I definitely set a goal like that when I was in high school and super introverted. So I totally relate. I get that.
Yeah. But that was probably the most recent one. And it was interesting because I don't think at the time I thought of it as goal setting.
Right.
And that was probably one of the most, I didn't structure it like how we think of New Year's resolutions. I didn't time box this success thing. I didn't really think of it like this is like I remember at the time, I definitely didn't think of anything of it like being goal setting. It was kind of like more a result of, I don't know, I guess.
It might be similar to the way that like I kind of sit down and it's just like, I'm so sick of this thing, I'm finally going to try and change it.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, exactly. Every chance taken is a chance missed. Every chance not taken is a chance missed.
That's fair.
English is the only language I speak. Oh no, did we drop?
Yeah, I think we did drop. My internet's so wonderful. Yeah, okay. So getting back into it, right? So she was saying that like she's terrible at making plans, and then if she makes a plan, she bails out, she gets anxiety. And I thought this was really interesting, right? Because there are two types of promises that I will get that about. There are the ones for that I promise myself and I don't tell anyone about, and then there's the social ones. So for instance, when I was doing like kung fu all the time, I definitely fell off the wagon a couple times, and this was like a pattern that I've had a lot of times where once I've become an adult and have to like go to extracurriculars, it was hard for me, man. It was like if I fell off for a week, I'd feel guilty, or I'd be like, man, if I go back, everyone's gonna judge me. I don't want to deal with that, right? And for me, that was a process of slowly coming back and saying, okay, you know what? It doesn't matter if people are like, oh, they fell off for a week. Because at the end of the day, when you don't see someone for a couple of weeks, you're like, oh, hey, how's it going? You know, you don't instantly judge them the way that you judge yourself. And you're like, oh, where were you for the, like, unless you're in a cult, who the hell is going to buy, right? And then the other one I had is, for instance, like with me making music, right? There, like, so I haven't been looking at my classes as much as I wanted to, but every time I fall off, I'm like, okay, let me get into a new project and try and do something. And it's weird that I don't judge myself for falling off that wagon because I know I'll get back on. Whereas when other people are around and hold accountable, I almost want to quit a lot earlier because I fear that judgment, right? And I think that's what's nuts.
That's interesting. That is really interesting. Yeah, it's almost like, yeah, depending on the kind of person you are, sometimes that social reinforcement that everybody promotes can like almost have a negative effect. And it was like, this was a very personal goal and a very private goal. I didn't share this with anyone. Like, I think this is actually the first time I've really articulated that was like, if you think about it, like a goal. Like, I had something I wanted to do and then found a process or set like an actionable thing to achieve it or see that change through.
Yeah.
So, and like, this is the first time I think I really articulated that. And like, but yeah, so it's that goals don't, like, you don't need to pressure. I don't know. Like, sometimes like pressuring yourself can have an adverse effect, right? Like, you don't want this to be, because by pressuring yourself, you almost turn it into a chore.
Yep. Totally.
And even if it, like, if you take something you don't want to do and try to solve it in a way that you don't want to solve it.
Right. If you beat yourself into submission, eventually you've run out of gas, right? And that's where people get burnout, where they stop enjoying the process and it becomes kind of like the monotony, right?
Yeah.
I totally get that. And there should be different ways. Like, you talk about, you fall in love with something and you try and give it and continue. And then I guess for me it's like I have to check in every now and then and maybe change it up. For instance, I'm somebody that absolutely hates like one thing forever. So if we were having our meetings in person and they lasted longer than they do, like I've had some business meetings with people and I do this thing where, like, if it's like a 4-hour meeting, an hour, I'm like, okay, let's go continue this while we get coffee, and like, okay, let's go get a drive. And it's because I'm almost like Aristotle, where I want to be walking or doing something to keep my brain just going. And like, for me, it gives me clarity. For other people, it makes them go insane.
Right.
But I think knowing yourself is important for that type of stuff, right?
Yeah, no, for sure.
Go ahead.
I had a thought and it kind of like left, like the train.
Yeah, that's fair.
I was about to say the train has sailed, and that kind of shows you the headspace that I'm in right now.
That's great. I got one though.
The ship has left the station. Go ahead.
So why do you think that like some people waited for COVID to change? So for me, it was like a personal thing where it was like, I have all these goals and all these lists that like go on forever. Literally, if you said, hey, do you want to learn this one thing? There's no way I'm going to say no, because I am genuinely interested in being a better person always. And if there's like something out there that I don't know how to do or know nothing about, I'm curious about it. I might not take it all the way, but I do want to know about it. So for me, the second COVID hit, I was like, cool, I can focus on those goals that I thought I'm probably going to try in 4 years, 5 years, because now I have to do the online stuff because nothing is happening in front of me. But I wonder why a lot of other people waited for COVID to try and get a handle on their life. I have some thoughts about it, but I want to know what yours are.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's the COVID bitch slap is kind of what I like to call it. The COVID, or I guess more colloquially, the COVID like wake up call of this is just like, for a large number of people, this was just like a forced change. It was like a forced stop and figure out where you are. Like, it was a fork in the road and there's no default path, or like not even a fork. This was a fucking T. Like, you keep going straight, you're into a wall. So, and for a lot of people, I think that's why this has been such a like, or like why you see so many people doing things that you wouldn't otherwise see them. because for a lot of people it's either the like there's no like autopilot. You're either like actively now choosing to stop and just not move,
Yeah.
or you're going one way or the other, right? Like this, there's no real way to kind of like I guess you could idle through it and just not move at all, but there isn't really any like default progress, and you're gonna have to come to the fact that like, am I just gonna sit here and like wait until the way ahead? Like it's like construction, right? You're at like a fucking 4-way intersection and straight is closed until COVID is over. So.
Yeah, right. You're like you're kind of stuck in, and so for some people,
yeah,
they want to keep going because there's nothing to do. I also think that like, I think there's the two elements to that. I think number one, people want to distract themselves because they can't deal with their own thoughts. I saw a lot of people come out of the first wave a lot more grounded and centered because they couldn't bury their anxieties in going to parties or, you know, drinking all the time. And I mean, don't get me wrong, some people absolutely became worse alcoholics or drug abusers or whatever over COVID, but a lot of people I do think like kind of calmed down and were like, okay, I can deal with things, it's not going to be the end of the world. And unfortunately there is the small amount of population that couldn't, and things got worse, and that is too bad. But I do think there are silver linings. And then there was the other half that was kind of like me, where it's like, well, if I can't work with this thing, I'm going to progress in other ways.
Yeah. This is taking a step back. Sorry, I remembered the train that left the train that sailed. But it was kind of related to summarize what we talked about a lot before, and I think it's about goals versus habits. And we very often mix the two. Like we set goals to achieve habits, and it's kind of like and it's a little like counterintuitive.
Yeah,
I think it kind of ties into everything that we are like. You don't realize it because it's like I want X, but and I think the easiest one, I was just thinking about it when we were thinking about fitness and kind of how that changes for so many people, and how you see so many people that just like so many people that like go on to like live super healthy lifestyles, and people that try and fail.
Right.
And I think it's like because it's always goals. It's everybody like meet your fitness goals, get the like body that you want, and everybody always like it's always marketed and it's always packaged as this like this prize. You win this, you are awarded this medal of
the glam factor.
The glam factor because you did all this, but that's really not what it is. And it is like it is a lifestyle, and the worst, like the hardest part about any sport, physical activity, or anything like that is that it leaves when you lose that lifestyle.
Oh, totally.
Like, and I think like kind of being able to critically assess what you want and whether it requires like what kind of change are you actually looking for. And I think it says a lot of like, it actually makes me feel kind of shit when I think about the fitness industry and all that kind of stuff now that I think about, where they all like all these fucking like 90-day plans.
Oh yeah, they just shove horse shit down your throat, right?
Like it's actually kind of ass when you really think this. As somebody that like I've always been very, very anti, really no good reason other than spite. I think like I don't actually have any research back. Now I feel more founded in my hatred of gyms, but it was really just a thing like, fuck your equipment. I don't need that shit. All I need is like a chin-up bar or like a tree branch and like my room. And I want to do everything like calisthenic, body weight. And that's just a very personal opinion. I know it's like objectively full of shit. I've actually seen like the TRX stuff and like different machines and stuff. That shit's dope. Like what you can do in a gym and like somebody who knows what they're doing, the way you can just target and like tune your body is like wicked.
So I
now have an appreciation for
feel
it.
like that is actually like a result of the calisthenic movement, where people were like, fucking like traditional weights and exercise bikes are like truly crap if you think about it. And I do think as people started to have that perspective, because I'm totally included in that, that they were like, okay, well, what are the things we can only do in a gym? Yeah, I feel like that's where it came from.
Sorry, tangent aside though, but like literally it's just kind of like that thing of like, what are you trying to change? Are you trying, or like what do you actually need to change to reach your goal? If your goal is like healthy body, it's not actually a healthy body. It is now I need to instill that mindset of I need to regularly follow this exercise routine. And the thing that's nice is like you don't actually need a lot to stay in shape. Like I think was the thing that I realized, like it doesn't take a whole lot. Like in a lot of ways, like you can actually like you can very easily like regress very quickly when you just stop, but you can actually stay like maintaining health, I think.
Yeah,
I think you can like it doesn't take a lot to maintain.
It's true.
I might be
it's just
blessed
consistent
in that,
effort,
but like I mean it's like it's the consistent small effort that really makes a difference between like completely not doing anything. And like some people like burn themselves out like, all right, 5 times a week, 1.5 hours at the gym, I'm gonna commute, follow this pattern, this pattern, this pattern. When really all you need is like a 10-minute cardio and like 15 minutes of stretching a day, maybe, is like you're not gonna be like flipping cars, but you're gonna feel good like in your own skin.
I mean,
And that was like, yeah.
Yeah, I do think you're blessed with like really good muscle retention. Just because like you can eat, like you personally can do nothing for a month and then still be able to jump over my head, which is insane. But
Yeah,
you're
one,
right,
I
right?
feel
Like
shit talking about that.
having a consistent baseline of effort will keep the gains that you already did have, which is important, right? Like if you used to do crazy weights or whatever, like it takes a lot more to build than it does to maintain or stay at a level. So when you're happy with where you are, you don't need to do like all of the work you were doing beforehand, unless you're above like the normal peak level of fitness, right? If you're going above and you're having those like crazy gym gains, then that it is what it is. But like going outside of fitness for a little bit and going back to like general resolution, like I know like fitness is a huge part of what people have for resolutions. But going back to what you were talking about, where people, you know, kind of have a goal in mind and the way to get there is to build a habit, and there's this contrast. Like even if you took that outside of the resolution, think about how many people want to be famous and they admire either like a TV star or a musician, and they're like, that's what I want that glam, right? Then never do they really think about how much time those people spend in the studios rehearsing lines, honing their crafts. Like the reason that those people usually get famous, I mean, like TikTok stars and Vine stars aside, it's because they put in so much work, and it literally becomes art at a certain point, and people just really appreciate that, right? They see the amount of effort and the influence that has, and that's why they get famous. But people see the attention, and they're like, I want that clout.
Yeah. I think that is actually a really, really good example. Like the like seeing, like I feel like it's very easy to watch a stream highlights and then be like, I want to be a Twitch streamer. That looks sick. The way they interact with their community, like, oh, that looks like so much fun. And then like you don't think about like all the other things that come along with that kind of stuff. Like that's just like the first one that came to my mind.
Yeah,
because I personally
like the years
that
that it took them to build an audience, to market, to reach out to like brands and have deals and network with other streamers and slowly grow. Like it is so hard to build anything to where you want when you only see the highlights. But the glam is what is attractive, and that's why those like 30-day courses that you're talking about that are full of shit are like also helpful in a way, because like to that audience, that is what's going to get them to start. And you know, some people are going to do it and they're going to feel tricked, and the other people are going to start, and then that'll continue their journey. So it's kind of a toss-up where like people need to have responsibility for their lives, but also like different methods are going to work for different people. Sometimes that quick grab is going to get you into that and keep you going, and other times you don't know.
I think it's just knowing, being able to critically think through what it is you need, basically, like knowing ahead of time what is required. Because I agree, and like, and I do that a lot too with myself, because like I'm very fickle and very, very like particular with my money. So sometimes I will just like on impulse, or like not on impulse, use planned impulse, like purchase something or put money into something to force myself to then commit to whatever hobby, habit, or whatever thing I spent on.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
I used to do that with rock climbing a lot,
right,
because I'm just lazy as fuck and hate leaving my house. But I would buy the like 30-day pass, and then I'd be like, I'd guilt myself, and I would always have a good time. I just fucking hate commuting in winter, but I would just like buy the pass and be like, well, fuck, now I have to go to the rock climbing gym. But like it worked, right? And so
yeah, like grit is so important.
That's a good point,
right? I think that like at least growing up in the school system, I thought a lot of the times, you know, they were like, oh, if you have an aptitude to this, if you're talented towards this, you'll do well. And that's true. But I think that like grit is so important, is like being able to keep yourself at something will push you to do it, no matter what your goals are. And this is really undersaid, right? Is like having the motivation to continue to like, not necessarily beat yourself into submission, but at least keep trying, right? Like keep taking the next step. That's so important.
For sure.
Chat, what is the farthest you've ever taken a resolution or a goal of yours? Like, I think it's important to think about those things when you're taking on the next ones, right? Like we talked about it earlier, but like I think critical thinking when looking at stuff like this, like you were saying, is so important. And it's kind of hard to say, what is a critical thinker? How do you get there? But I think the more that you break down like your past experiences and you can and consider them when you're going into the next ones, that's probably where we want to be, right?
The furthest I've taken a goal. That's an interesting. I don't even know what I would say for that one. Gotta think about that one.
See, it's weird for me because like a lot of the goals that I have had, like I'm definitely the person like Rickles was saying earlier, like I do have ADHD for sure. Like with the flipping journey, I think I went hard for something like 3 years in a row. Actually maybe more, maybe it was like more like 4 years, and then I broke my leg. Then we had a little bit of a hiatus, and then I went really hard again for like another year or two, and then there's like some months here and there. And then, DJing, I guess you could say that was a goal, and I pushed hard for the 3 years before COVID. But it's strange because they almost don't feel like you were pushing for a goal, because when you look back, you're like, oh, this was part of my life that I've just been continuing it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think like that's like a really good thread to kind of pull through a lot of like the most successful goals are that they often don't feel like it at the time. Like the most success I've found with a lot of the things that I want to accomplish are ones where at the time I don't think of it as a like thing that needs to like a goal I'm reaching. Like I don't approach it with my like I don't know. I guess like there is definitely this like mindset or hat of like I am missing something that I need in my life, and in order to fill or grab that piece and put it in there, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z.
Right.
And like that is a very different mindset than the one that I had accomplishing. Like one of them was my portfolio website. That was probably like a pretty big one where like I went hard on that shit.
Oh, it's
for, like,
so nice,
like
by the
6
way.
Months.
It's so nice.
No, thank you. But yeah, like I worked really hard on that, and that was like done in like a 6 to 8 month window, I think. But this was just like regular weekly progress on it, getting feedback, getting work. But when I think back to it, it was not a like I guess it kind of was a goal, but I was like, I need a portfolio so I can apply to jobs, so I can like keep all my work together, blah 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
And like, but the actual process of doing it was very rarely like a chore. It was like finding inspiration, getting motivated to do it. Like it was a lot of fun for me. I got to learn a lot. I got to like try out a lot of cool things.
Yeah.
And then looking back on it, I was like, you do innately use those tools that you're taught for like how do I achieve my goals, and like
the
I was
troubleshooting,
motivated
right?
about it. Like all that troubleshooting stuff, but it was never a very like it wasn't the first thing on my mind when I took on that challenge. Was like, how am I going to defeat these challenges? It was more of a like, what gets me excited about this? Like what's the best part about this? And then I guess at least for me, it was I want to see now that to get it started, I was like, there's a sick thing that I really want to make. And
right.
I was like, I want to make this. And like, that was like, for me, that was like the landing page. I had like really strong inspiration for one particular piece of it.
Right.
And then once I was done that, it was kind of like, well, now the motivation to actually have a finished product I can share kind of perpetuated it to completion. But like finding those things that I'm like, I want to do this, and like letting that kickstart me was a big part of that. Like letting that goal kind of self-perpetuate itself.
I think what's kind of interesting is like I have this theory that literally life is just a big troubleshooting thing, and the better you are at troubleshooting, the better you become in life. Yeah, we can totally talk about it in the future. But I do want to digress right now because we've talked a lot about goals that take forever, right? They're pursuits we've been talking about. Are there any kind of resolutions or goals that were one-offs that you found super fulfilling? Because there are some of those out there, right? There are those one-time experiences or the things you only need to try once that people have on their bucket list or are just like big resolutions. And, you do that one and done and you got your experience worth.
Yeah, like the one and I guess because we were talking about it a little bit before, like what you mentioned, like reaching out to people, like those very like short term.
Yeah, for sure. And for some people, right, like reconnecting with family is a big one, but also like some people just want to check in with an old friend here and there. They don't necessarily want to rekindle a relationship, but they're like, oh, I'm curious, and they get him back into that. While you're thinking, I'll just talk about some things that I found
Go ahead.
were super fulfilling even as one-offs. Like I think everything on my bucket list has been super fulfilling. So some of them took a long process to get to, like doing a backflip on hard ground was something that I was like, oh, that needs to happen. And the first time it did, like, I felt like a god. But there are other things that didn't take that much effort, like going skydiving. Like, that was just pay money and not chicken out, right? But like, that really gives you a lot of perspective there. The same thing was when I went bungee jumping. And these are both things that, like, I will probably do again at some point, but just actually taking that leap is what I cared to try. And for me, that's part of a big reason why I'm kind of an adrenaline junkie, is because I think having those experiences, like, number one, it helps you push into discomfort more and like try and figure things out, but also like they're rewarding in a sense that like they have a dangerous nature to them, and what you're doing is kind of experiencing something that few people experience. And like it's like a physical way to confront mortality, but not really, right? Like the same way that like I think like it almost helps you cope with existential angst because you tease yourself with that. And that's why like I like cliff diving too. It's just these are all things that I've only needed to do once to get the lessons out of, but I come back from those experiences and I go like I get a new perspective, you know, like I think about life a lot differently.
Huh. Yeah, I'm trying to. That's interesting. That's a really interesting. I've never done anything that much. I definitely want to go skydiving at some point. I hate roller coasters. I found that out very early. Absolutely despise roller coasters. That was the
Yeah.
least fun I'd ever had.
Oh,
in
I
my
was
entire life.
terrified of roller coasters as a child. I was
Oh, like going on them made it worse. Like I was terrified, and somebody's like, "You'll love it once you go on it." And then I went on it, and I was like, "No, you were wrong. This is literally a fucking Satan machine." And yeah, that was very embarrassing, but also really funny. In hindsight.
Oh, dude, man,
Short-term
like
goals.
small thing about roller coasters. Like I used to be as afraid of roller coasters as a child as I was of talking to girls. And my mother once promised me like she would get me like a whole Yu-Gi-Oh deck if I went on a fucking roller coaster, and I said no. She offered me
Holy
she
shit.
offered me the goddamn what was it, the Blackluster Soldier box set, and I was like, no, I can't. I wanted that
my
more than
God.
anything, and I was like, no, I don't want to
Can't get on this
die.
roller coaster. God damn, that's actually so funny.
Yeah.
Short term, why is it so hard to think about? It should literally be anything. Short term goals. I feel like a lot of this isn't exactly short term goals, but it's like a coping mechanism that I used to use a lot in
Okay.
terms of just it's kind of related to it, and it was like especially like early years of university when you're kind of just going through the motions, things are kind of ass and
Yeah.
motivation is low.
Mm-hmm.
I'd usually try to find like what is the next like victory basically, or like next thing to look forward to. And I guess that's kind of it's a little bit of a stretch, but it was a short-term goal for me, I guess, of like, all right, just 4 more days until fucking I remember in first year this was a big one when we used to do weekly parkour when
Mhm.
Waterloo Parkour still ran at
Right.
the university. It was a parkour club, and we'd have weekly meets. A big one for me then was just like, all right, just 4 more days until the next meet. I get to hang out with people, go climb some shit, go jump around, have some fun. And like that was a big one where it was like, how many like I just have if I do this, I'm 1 step closer to X thing that I actually am interested in or excited about. If I just get through this class, I'm gonna go home. Me and my friend said we're gonna play some Overwatch tonight.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very thankful. I haven't had to fall back on that one in a while. I know I say coping mechanism. I feel like there's healthy and unhealthy coping mechanisms. And
Oh,
I
for
guess
sure.
maybe you can kind of say like at the end of the day, there's really like no like the healthiest thing you can do is address a problem, that like the root problem of whatever you're coping with.
Yeah.
Which I guess is like a little optimistic. I don't know. I like to believe that at some point there's like, it's good to have tools when you want to, like, there's the right time and place to deal with like larger issues and just finding that, finding the right time. Anyway, but yeah, like that's like kind of like a way for me, just like those short-term goals of just like, what's the next thing can I work towards?
Okay, that's fair. So for you, it like maybe it's not about like big experiences, but it's about like like small perspective shifts and like the daily, which is a big deal because a lot of people say that like the little moments are the things that make life like bigger, right?
Yeah.
No, that's fair. And I mean, sometimes even just like a small one-time project is a big deal. Like, what's a good example? Because like I keep thinking about these big grandiose things that I've done, but I know for sure there are like smaller things that I've really tried and was happy with. Like this one time, still it might sound grandiose, but it really wasn't. Like I made a video game when I was like 13, and like to me that was like the most fulfilling thing ever. Right? All I did was like grab like an open source engine and just grab assets from other places and put it into like its own thing. But like, yeah, sometimes like the little experiences or the things you do, like you can take with you. Right. And that's why you were talking about like, I guess, with your website and making it a nice portfolio thing is like, that was technically a one-time experience, even though it took a while. But like the lessons you learn from that and the product, like are probably something you look back on and you're like, wow, that was great. I'm happy I took that on.
Yeah.
Right. And so not every single thing is one big like forever journey. Sometimes they are a little bit smaller, but I think there's always kind of wisdom that you bring back with them.
No, I agree. That's actually a good one. I had like a small project. I was like, I didn't even, yeah, like again, I didn't even think of it like a goal, but that was a small project. You kind of reminded me. I did like this. I learned a like 3D library for like doing 3-dimensional animation on web. And it was something I wanted to learn for a long time, and like something came up where a friend of mine needed something related to that for like a project they were working on.
Right.
And then I was able, and then that was like really nice. Where it was just like, cool. I now have like a thing to reach. Like this is not, it's not like a super huge scale thing that they needed. It was very like compact, focused, and I was like, I know exactly what I need to make. Now I can learn this thing because I can see like the finish line already, kind of thing.
Okay, yeah.
And that was a big one, and that was like a small kind of goal. I think that was condensed in like to a month, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really, really cool. And I'm looking forward to doing a lot more with that stuff.
I think a lot of the smaller things that you do take on help you build confidence in towards like the next things you want to learn, right? So like if you have the resolve or a resolution to learn something small, like for some people it was like, oh, I want to learn like a TikTok dance, like maybe that'll just help you with the next small thing. And like they seem really inconsequential at the time, but like I think the more that you get used to taking something on and doing it, the more likely you are to take bigger and bigger things. Or like people say, the more that you do, the more that you can do. And like after taking like a small vacation in one country and then, you know, doing small travels alone, like I was able to go to China by myself for like 40 days. And I was like, hey, man, after that, like I can do anything. I'm not like, of course, I'm not going to go to the Congo where it's maybe war ridden just to see a gorilla. But like the idea is I trust myself enough that if I was in that situation, I would make like mostly good decisions.
Yeah, that's another goal, or like yeah, resolution, whatever. That's a post-COVID resolution though. I'm flying the fuck over to Japan once this shit lifts.
Oh man,
goddamn. Hopping on a plane, I'm going over there.
I definitely feel bad for a lot of people that have the travel resolutions, man, because like those are big things. I think travel is a big experience. And even though like it's by no means mandatory, I think it is something that people should do just to like be exposed to different cultures, you know?
Legit, I've never left NA.
Wow.
I've never left this NA. The furthest I've gone was Disney World, which is literally not even Florida. Like it's not even like you visit the States. Disney World is its own fucking utopia place. Like that's the furthest I've gone. So literally I've never even left Canada. I've never left the East Coast for sure. So I've never been anywhere further west than like I don't know what the fuck like what the fuck is the westmost end of Ontario? That's the furthest west I've been. Niagara Falls, furthest west.
Yeah. Damn. Yeah, literally. Maybe post COVID we'll have an episode abroad. We'll do this in Japan.
Yeah, maybe that would be nice. Yeah, off time zone. I would like to. I really, really want to travel. I'm very mad. I had plans to travel. I had 2 really big travel plans lined up. Number 1, I was gonna co-op abroad.
Oh yeah,
3 months ago on this one. I was gonna go to either the States or Europe or Korea if I could get a job. They had a Samsung posting. I was thinking about getting a software job there. I was like, I want to just fuck off for 4 months and see what it's like. Immerse myself, like live there, buy food there, cook there, just like all no holds barred.
Yeah, like fully take it on.
But yeah, and like see, could I do that? And with the kind of safety net of in 4 months, I'm gonna be shipped back, and there's like no, I don't actually have to pick up everything and move. Because it's a very temporary time box thing.
Right.
Might try and do the same. We'll see. We'll see where work takes me. I want to try and like maybe work abroad for a year early in my career.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, that's tangent aside.
Yeah, no, that's fair. But like, I think like goals that like are COVID specific that like you can't do until after, like travel. Would, and I mean, there's a few other that are related because they require other people in person. Um, I think that like we definitely covered a lot of the bases here, and then like a lot of the reasons that a small amount of people hit the resolutions is because they're either focused on an end result or the glam instead of the process. A lot of people don't schedule it into their lives, and a lot of the times people don't actually critically think about what they want and why they want it and how to get there, and they just make an arbitrary, this would be nice, that's the resolution, not going to do my homework about it, right? How many people just pick something up like a fad and then get rid of it, and it's too bad, but like it is good, and like it's good that they're starting. And I think that like COVID itself has the silver linings of people, like not everyone, of course, but some people have been able to sit down, look at themselves critically, and understand themselves better as people. Some people have been able to take on entire new pursuits, like this podcast. Uh, but yeah, like I truly think that, like if you can pick a resolution for COVID and stick to it and keep going, you will feel so much better about it when this is over. Be it like, let's say that there's 7 waves and this lasts for 5 years. Maybe you'll come out of here like a brand new person. But at the end of the day, like this is life as we know it right now. So why don't we make the most of it?
Honestly,
Any closing thoughts from you, buddy?
steps. Closing thought? No, we had a lot of thoughts. I don't know if any of them are working closing. Honestly, yeah, just follow your dreams, all that shit. No, actually, though, just enjoy the journey is the probably,
The
at least
biggest
for me,
takeaway.
the best. Everybody, there to each their own. I know people can be goal oriented, and some people all you need is the goal.
Hmm.
But the biggest thing that helps me get over that kind of like inferiority of like, oh, somebody else just fucking wants this and they get it, is just finding a way to enjoy the process and figuring out, like thinking through how can I get to whatever place I want to be and have fun and actually be motivated along the way. And the nice thing about that is that, um, if you really enjoy the journey, sometimes you end up like, that's kind of the thing you take away rather than the goal. And I feel like that's been those have been like the best moments for me personally, like with programming and stuff, like where learning to program or like finishing a project doesn't, even though I finished the project, the thing I've gained along the way is like, I still love programming. I've learned all these new tools to carry on to something else. Or like, going back to fitness for me, when the end goal was just learning to do a flip,
Hmm.
and what I gained out of it was like, I fucking love parkour and I love the process of learning this. I love teaching it to other people. That's how I met Ryan ultimately in the first place, was like chasing like parkour stuff at Parkour Club in Waterloo, at my university. And like,
True.
yeah, basically, like that's basically it. If you just, some of the best things you find are on the journey.
Yeah, absolutely.
That
Like
is my
diving into
TLDR.
things. Yeah, like diving into things definitely, I think, opens up avenues. And if anything, I hope you guys take away the fact that like you will get to a goal at some point, but you should probably look more about the things that happen on the way, the small things, and just like the lessons learned, because like you never know how things are going to unfold. And maybe even if you don't hit your goal, as you go and progress in whatever it is you're trying, like you will find something that you'll probably carry with you for the rest of your life. Yeah. Thanks. All right, friends. Let us know if you have anything that you're interested in us talking about in the future. Of course, my DMs are always open, and you're welcome to spam Donovan's as well. If there's
Yeah, sure.
anything you
Will I
missed,
check them? Maybe
yeah. If
on Twitch, maybe.
yeah, and maybe we'll check the bots. Um,
Yeah.
if you're catching this on YouTube, feel free to drop it in the comments as well. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. It has been so much fun. Thank you, Donovan, and we'll see you guys
Pleasure as
next
always.
week.